A24 is back at it again with a new horror thriller film in theaters called Opus. Hey everyone, my name is Ryan. Thank you guys for clicking on this video. I really appreciate you guys taking your time to check out my thoughts on this new film called Opus. Now, this film was directed by Mark Anthony Green, and this is his directorial debut. The film stars Ayo Edebiri, Juliette Lewis, Murray Bartlett, Amber Midthunder, and John Malkovich. What is this film ultimately about? Well, it's about a up-and-coming writer/journalist who I believe is in New York. She gets invited to this compound because this singer, played by John Malkovich, has been off the grid for quite a long time. He's just written a new album, and she has been invited to this compound to hear some new music, and then she has her other colleagues as well that are going over there to see what exactly he is all about. And when they get to this compound, they have some weird things that they actually see when they're actually there. Now, they have to fly a plane from New York to some other town out in Utah, and they have to take a bus, and it takes about 4 hours to get to this compound. It's in the middle of nowhere. We find out that Ayo Edebiri's character, she's up-and-coming writer/journalist. She's trying to look for her big break, and when she's on this bus, she's talking to a couple of her other colleagues, and they basically just want her to really just be the note-taker, which she really doesn't want. From a positive standpoint, I did like the cinematography here. I feel like A24, it doesn't matter what movie it is, their cinematography is always top-notch. You have the desert here, you have some drone shots with the desert, and you just feel like you're definitely isolated. A24 does a really good job here of making you feel like you're isolated in the middle of nowhere, and there's no help going to arrive despite the fact of what's going to go down at this compound. I also thought the music was pretty good as well. I think their soundtracks are always usually pretty good. There is some softer music in which in the beginning of the film, I thought some of the chimey kind of music reminded me of Zola back from a few years ago. And then some of the other music, I felt like it just was very appropriate for what was really going on. John Malkovich, with his music, it's very I guess Elton John-ish is what they're comparing it to. So his music is, it's a little bit out there, I would say, in a way. I mean, it is a little bit different. And John Malkovich, he hams up the role here. I think he does a pretty good job with the role here and what he's trying to do as a musician. He has a very interesting compound because on one end, you have a lot of people on this compound. They do a lot of artistry. They do a lot of paintings. They do pottery. They do a lot of things to really express themselves through art. But then there's also some very weird things in which they have this little house that looks like a teepee. It reminded me definitely of Midsommar, but not really far into the concept of really going too far with that concept of the tent that looks like a house as well, where people are sitting there, they take a knife, and they peel these oysters, and they're trying to find pearls. This idea is introduced, and I understand they're showing the weirdness of this film and introducing ideas like that, but at the same time, they don't really do anything with it. There's also an interesting scene in which they're in a dinner table, and at the dinner table, they have this bread bowl, and each person is taking a bite of this bread bowl, and every time someone is doing it, you just see all this saliva, and the bread is getting wetter by the moment. That scene was pretty gross, I'm not going to lie. I mean, just if you're really a germaphobe, you're going to see that scene, you're going to be like, what the heck? Now, with this film, it's a very slow film, and because it is a very slow film, you're thinking that there's going to be a lot of weird and strange things happening. And I feel like this is one of those films that's very much saturated in the cult genre that just doesn't really have a lot to say. There's not really a lot really going on to make you feel like this is just a very weird situation. Having the pottery and the artistry type of thing, it seems pretty normal. It doesn't seem really out of the ordinary. People have talent. That's great. There's other certain little things that kind of go on, but it's a very much a slow burn film. And a lot of the things that really happen that would be weird or really out there, it happens all within the last, I would say, 20 to 25 minutes of this movie. So you have to be very patient with this movie. And there's some interesting things going on with John Malkovich's character. But I feel like with this movie, it doesn't give you a whole lot of answers. Not only does it not give you enough answers, but when the answers actually do finally arrive, it's very underwhelming. It feels kind of dull. It feels like the writing isn't there. And the fact also that this director, this is his first film, he also wrote this film as well. So the lack of writing here is very much why this movie isn't anything special. I did appreciate the fact that our main lead, she is smart. She was written smart. That, I think, was very helpful for the film, because I think that if she was a dumb character, there isn't any other character to really latch on here, because all the other characters are just kind of there along the ride. And I felt like a lot of the characters that were along for the ride that we didn't get like a ton from, there's certain little things that are going on that are strange, in which the characters seem to not really react to, and so they wrote those characters really dumb. But at the same time, this is not one of those films where people are getting picked off one by one, and then there's all these like strange little occurrences here and there. There's not enough of that. Like, there's maybe like one or two like little strange occurrences, but then it really amps up in that last 20-25 minutes, like I said, and then you're just kind of left with, that's it. But then on top of what happens on that compound, what goes down, there's also like an extended scene after that, in which, to me, I just felt very underwhelmed by that scene. And when the screen went black, or it went yellow in this case, because it was a yellow background when the film actually ended, I just was very underwhelmed. I felt like this film, it feels very much like a Blink Twice that has like the smallest touch of Midthunder. Midthunder is one of my favorite cult films ever, so I don't want to compare too much to Midthunder. Blink Twice, I would say it's probably more like, but I think Blink Twice kind of spun a lot in directions where it was kind of like the same thing over and over, and then it just kind of went for it within the last 20-25 minutes, which is kind of like this film, but at the same time, it's not where it's like the same day over and over. It's one of those films where it's slow and it's giving you things little by little, but at the same time, not giving you too much crazy things going on, if you can get where I'm trying to say. There is another interesting thing I will say too about this film is I thought it was interesting that each guest, they had like a butler and they follow them everywhere. And I thought to myself, maybe they can do a little bit more with that. There really isn't anything out of the ordinary or weird with that, but I felt like there were some other things they could have done with that. I feel like there's just so many things with this film where I felt like they could have done a lot more of, and the film had potential to be a good film. It just didn't have a lot of interesting things to really say, or really interesting things to put on screen to make you feel like, oh man, like this is the film you've got to go out and watch. And I just feel like it's a film that goes into the cult genre that's in a very saturated market right now, in which it doesn't really stand out, and it really does suffer from writing issues. And again, when you're a first-time writer like this, you know, you have to nail it. And if you don't nail it, and you are going into a market where people have seen a lot of these kind of films, culty-like films, you've got to really nail your concepts. And I just didn't feel like this film nailed its concept. It missed the mark overall. So as far as a score for me on this film, I would give it a 2.5 out of 5. I think it's a one-time watch. I don't really have any reason to rewatch it. I just felt, like I said, it has some little interesting things here and there, but not enough weirdness or quirkiness to really make it stand out of the rest. And A24 has done way better films and put out way better films to which they have embraced the weird and quirky kind of things in the horror genre. And this, to me, felt very safe. Just nothing really stood out about it to me. Let me know in the comments, what did you think about Opus? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you just think it was kind of meh? Thank you guys for watching as always, and I will see you guys next time.